Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Goodnight Stories. My name is Lyra, and I will be your guide into whatever book we decide to read tonight. From young readers to young adult novels, my hope is to give you a comfortable space to listen to a story while you work or doze, whatever brings you joy. So, sit back, relax, and grab a cup of tea. I know I have tea tonight, and it is a underworld tea from Bees and Teas. So it has pomegranate and elderberry. So tonight we jump back into and possibly finish Erin Hunter's Into the Wild. Chapter 22. Firepaw and Greypaw retraced their steps to ThunderClan territory. Both cats were bone-weary and wet through, but Firepaw kept up the pace. The storm was beginning to move away. A ThunderClan patrol would be out soon and on Yellowfang's trail. They had to find her first. The sky was still dark, even though the black thunder clouds were beginning to roll away toward the horizon. Firepaw guessed that it must be nearly sunset. "Why don't we head straight into ShadowClan territory?" suggested Greypaw, as they ran down the steep hillside into 4 trees. "We need to pick up Yellowfang's scent first," Firepaw explained. "I just hope it won't lead to the ShadowClan camp." Greypaw glanced sideways at his friend, but didn't reply. They headed back over the stream into ThunderClan territory. There was no scent of Yellowfang until they crossed into the oak woods close to the camp. Now that the rain had finally stopped, the scents around them were beginning to return. Firepaw hoped that the rain had not washed away Yellowfang's trail completely. He stopped and brushed at a fern with the tip of his nose and recognized the familiar smell. Yellowfang's fierce scent prickled in his nostrils. "She came this way," he meowed. He pushed his way through the wet undergrowth. Greypaw followed. The rain was easing and the thunder fading into the distance. Time was running out. Firepaw pushed on faster. To his dismay, he realized Yellowfang's scent was indeed leading them straight into ShadowClan territory. His heart sank. Did this mean Tigerclaw's accusations were true? Firepaw began to hope that each new smell would take them in a different direction, but the trail was unfaltering. They arrived at the thunder path and halted. Several monsters roared by, throwing up fountains of dirty water. The 2 cats hung back from the edge of the wide gray track until there was a gap. Then they raced across the path and into ShadowClan territory. The scent markers that lined the border made Firepaw's paws tingle. Greypaw halted and looked around nervously. "I always thought I'd have a few more warriors with me when I finally entered ShadowClan territory," he confessed. "Not afraid, are you?" Firepaw murmured. "Aren't you?" "My mother warned me about the stench of ShadowClan many times." "My mother never taught me such things," Firepaw replied. But for the first time, he was relieved that his fur was so wet that it clung to his body. Greypaw might not notice the way it was bristling fearfully along his spine. The 2 cats prowled onward, alert to every sight and sound. Greypaw was on the lookout for ShadowClan patrols, and Firepaw for the ThunderClan party he knew must come soon. Yellowfang's scent trail led them steadily into the heart of ShadowClan's hunting grounds. The woods were gloomy, the undergrowth crowded with nettles and brambles. "I can't smell her," complained Greypaw. "It's too wet." "It's there," Firepaw assured him. "I can smell that, though," Greypaw spat suddenly. "What?" Firepaw hissed. He stopped, alarmed. "Kit scent. There's kit blood here." Firepaw sniffed again, seeking out the smell of ThunderClan offspring. "I smell it too," he agreed. "And something else." He flicked his tail down sharply, warning Greypaw to keep quiet. Then silently, he signaled with his whiskers towards a black and ash tree up ahead. Greypaw twitched his ears questioningly. Greypaw gave him a tiny nod. Yellowfang was sheltering behind the wide split trunk. Instinctively, the two cats separated, each moving toward the tree, one on either side. They crept over the soft forest floor, using all the tricks of basic training, stepping lightly, keeping their bodies low. Then they leapt. Yellowfang yowled with surprise as the two cats landed beside her and pinned her to the ground. She struggled free, spitting, and backed into a sheltered hollow at the base of the trunk. Firepaw and Greypaw moved forward, blocking her way out. "I knew ThunderClan would blame me," she hissed, her eyes flashing with all her old hostility. "Where are the kits?" Firepaw demanded. "We can smell their blood," spat Greypaw. "Have you harmed them?" "I don't have them," snarled Yellowfang angrily. "I've come to find them and take them back. I stopped because I smelled blood too, but they're not here." Firepaw and Greypaw looked at one another. "I don't have them," insisted Yellowfang. "Why did you run away then? Why did you kill Spotted Leaf?" Greypaw asked the questions Firepaw couldn't bring himself to say out loud. "Spotted Leaf is dead?" There was no mistaking the shock in Yellowfang's voice. Relief washed over Firepaw. "You didn't know?" he croaked. "How could I? I left the camp as soon as I heard the kits were missing." Greypaw looked suspicious, but Firepaw could hear the truth in her voice. "I know who has taken the kits," she continued. "I smelled his scent near the nursery." "Who was it?" Firepaw asked. "Clawface, one of Broken Star's warriors, and as long as the kits are with ShadowClan, they're in great danger." "But surely even ShadowClan wouldn't harm kits," Firepaw protested. "Don't be so sure," spat Yellowfang. "Broken Star intends to use them as warriors." "But they are only 3 moons old," Greypaw gasped. "That hasn't stopped him before. He has been training kits as young as 3 moons since he became leader. At 5 moons, he sends them out as warriors." "Surely they'd be too small to fight," Firepaw protested. But in his mind's eye, he pictured the undersized ShadowClan apprentices he had seen at the gathering. They weren't just small, they were kits. Yellowfang hissed scornfully. "Broken Star doesn't care about that. He has plenty more kits to spare, and if they run out, he can steal them from other clans." Her voice was filled with rage. "After all, we're talking about a cat who killed his kits from his own clan." Firepaw and Greypaw were stunned. "If he killed ShadowClan kits, why hasn't he been punished?" Firepaw asked at last. "Because he lied," growled Yellowfang. Bitterness made her voice hard. "He accused me of their murder, and ShadowClan believed him." Firepaw suddenly understood. "Is that why you were driven out of ShadowClan?" he asked. "You have to come back with us and tell all this to Blue Star." "Not before I have rescued your kits," Yellowfang spat. Firepaw lifted his head and sniffed the air. The rain had stopped, and the wind was dying down. The ThunderClan patrol would be well on its way. They were not safe here. Greypaw still seemed shocked by Yellowfang's accusation. "How could a leader kill kits from his own clan?" he demanded. "Broken Star insisted on training them too hard and too young. He took 2 of the kits away for battle practice." Yellowfang took a deep wheezing breath. "They were only 4 moons old. They were already dead when he brought them back to me. They bore the scratches and bites of a full warrior, not of apprentices. He must have fought them himself. There was nothing I could do. When their mother came to see them, Broken Star was with me. He said that he had found me standing over their dead bodies." Her voice cracked, and she suddenly looked away. "Why didn't you tell her it was Broken Star?" Firepaw asked in disbelief. Yellowfang shook her head. "I couldn't." "Why not?" The old she-cat hesitated. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with regret. "Broken Star is ShadowClan's leader. Noble Ragged Star was his father. His word is law." Firepaw looked away, and the 3 cats sat in silence for a moment. Then Firepaw meowed. "We'll rescue the kits together, tonight. But we can't stay here. I can smell the ThunderClan patrol coming." He paused. "If Tigerclaw is with them, Yellowfang doesn't stand a chance. He'll kill her before we can explain." Yellowfang looked at him, alert and determined again. "There's peat this way. It'll be wet after the rain," she told him. "Our scents will be disguised there." She leapt into a clump of ferns, and Firepaw and Greypaw quickly followed her. They could hear the rustling of undergrowth in the distance now. It was no longer the wind that disturbed the bushes, but an approaching patrol, no doubt hungry for revenge and fired up by Tiger Claw's lies. An eerie stillness settled over the woods, and a thin fog was beginning to gather between the tree trunks. Firepaw shook the droplets off his coat and impatiently pulled a burr off his chest. Yellowfang led them onward. The ground grew soggier, and their paws began to sink into the soft peat. The musty smell choked Firepaw's nostrils, but at least it would mask their own trail. Behind them, the noise of cats grew louder. "Quick, under here," Yellowfang urged, ducking under the broad-leafed bush. The 3 cats crouched beneath it, drawing in their tails. Firepaw kept as still as he could, trying to ignore the rank wetness of the ground seeping into his belly fur, and listening to the rustling of the ThunderClan patrol as it came nearer and nearer. Chapter 23. Firepaw could tell there were several cats in the patrol, traveling fast. He couldn't recognize the individual scents of the cats through the earthy bog odors, but he knew it was ThunderClan. He held his breath as the paw steps raced past and away. "Are we really going to try to rescue the kits from ShadowClan alone?" whispered Greypaw. Yellowfang answered him first. "I might be able to find us some help from inside ShadowClan. Not all the cats support Broken Star." Firepaw pricked up his ears, and Greypaw flicked his tail in surprise. "When he became leader," Yellowfang explained, "Broken Star forced the elders to leave the security of the inner camp. They had to live on the boundary and hunt for themselves. These are cats who have grown up with the warrior code. Some of them might help us." Firepaw stared into her old eyes, thinking quickly. And I might be able to persuade the ThunderClan hunting party to help us too," he meowed. "If I can speak to them before they see Yellowfang, I might be able to make them believe her story. Greypaw, you wait at the dead ash where we smelled the kit blood till one of us returns." Greypaw looked worried. "Do you really trust Yellowfang to bring back help?" he murmured to Firepaw. "You must trust me," growled Yellowfang. "I will return." Greypaw looked at Firepaw, who nodded. Without another word, Yellowfang sprang past the 2 apprentices and disappeared into the bushes. "Have we done the right thing?" asked Greypaw. "I don't know," Firepaw admitted. "If we have, we are heroes and the kits are safe. If we are wrong, then we are as good as dead." Firepaw sprinted after the patrol, around brambles, past gorse, and through nettles. The trail was easy to follow. The angry ThunderClan cats weren't trying to disguise their presence in ShadowClan territory. Overhead, the thick layer of clouds had finally rolled away. Beyond the treetops, silver pelt glittered across the night sky. The moon was just rising, but its cold light couldn't pierce the mist that clung to the shadowy undergrowth. Firepaw concentrated on the scent from up ahead. He could smell Whitestorm. He sniffed again. Tiger Claw wasn't with them. He raced to catch up and skidded to a halt behind the band of ThunderClan cats. The warriors turned and glared at him, fur bristling, ears flattened aggressively. Darkstripe was with them, and the young she-cat Mousefur, as well as the tabby warrior Running Wind. Mousefur wasn't the only she-cat in the patrol. Willowpelt was there too. "Firepaw," growled Whitestorm, "what are you doing here?" Firepaw gasped for breath. "Bluestar sent me," he panted. "She wanted me to find Yellowfang before—" Whitestorm interrupted him. "Ah," he meowed. "Bluestar told me I might find a friend out here. Now I understand what she meant." He looked thoughtfully at Firepaw. "Is Tiger Claw nearby?" Firepaw asked, feeling a tingle of pride at their shared gaze. Whitestorm looked at him curiously. Bluestar insisted she needed him to remain at camp to protect the remaining kits. Firepaw nodded quickly, relieved. He meowed urgently. "Whitestorm, I need your help. I can lead you to the kits. Greypaw's waiting for me. We plan to rescue them tonight. Will you come?" "Of course we'll come." The warriors flicked their tails with excitement. It will mean raiding the Shadow Clan camp, Firepaw warned. Can you lead us there? Asked Running Wind eagerly. No, but Yellowfang can, and she has promised to bring help from her old allies in the camp. Mousefur glared at him and thrashed her tail angrily. You have found Yellowfang? She hissed. I don't understand, meowed Whitestorm, puzzled. The traitor is going to help rescue the kits she stole. Firepaw took a deep breath to calm himself, then looked steadily into Whitestorm's eyes. Yellowfang didn't take them, he meowed, nor did she murder Spotted Leaf. She wants to help us rescue our kits. Whitestorm stared back at him, then blinked slowly. Lead the way, Firepaw, he ordered. Greypaw was waiting by the ash tree, pacing restlessly around its rotten trunk. He stopped as soon as he saw the patrol emerge from the mist and twitched his whiskers in greeting. Any sign of Yellowfang? Firepaw asked. Not yet, answered Greypaw. We don't know how far it is to the Shadow Clan camp, Firepaw pointed out quickly, feeling Whitestorm stiffen beside him. She may be on her way back right now. Or she might be happily sharing tongues with her Shadow Clan comrades. Comrades, while we sit here like fools waiting to be ambushed, meowed Greypaw. Whitestorm watched the two apprentices, his ears flicked uneasily. Firepaw, he prompted. She will come back, Firepaw promised. Well said, young Firepaw. Yellowfang stalked out from behind the ash tree and sat down. You're not the only one who can sneak up on someone, she meowed at Firepaw. Remember the day we met? You were looking in the wrong direction that time, too. 3 other Shadow Clan cats appeared from behind the tree and settled themselves calmly on either side of Yellowfang. The Thunder Clan cats bristled, alert and suspicious. Both clans stared silently at each other. Firepaw fidgeted uncomfortably, unsure what to do now. Eventually, one of the Shadow Clan cats, a Grey Tom, spoke. His long body was skinny and his fur looked dull. We've come to help you, not harm you. You have come for your kits. We will help you rescue them. What's in it for you? Asked Whitestorm warily. We want you to help to get rid of Broken Star. He has broken the warrior code, and the Shadow Clan is suffering. So it's that simple, is it? Growled Running Wind. We just drop into your camp, snatch the kits, kill your leader, and go home? You will not meet as much resistance as you think, murmured the Grey Tom. Yellowfang stood up. Let me introduce my old friends, she meowed, weaving her way around the Shadow Clan cats. She brushed past the Grey Tom. This is Ashfur. He is one of the clan elders. And this is Nightpelt, a senior warrior before Ragged Star was killed. She circled a battered Black Tom, who nodded at them. And this is one of our elder queens, Dawncloud. 2 of her kits died driving out Wind Clan. Dawncloud, a small tabby, meowed in greeting. I do not wish to lose any more of my kits, she told them. Whitestorm gave his chest a quick lick to smooth down his fur. You are clearly skilled warriors if you manage to creep up on us like that, but are there enough of you? We need to know what we'll face when we raid the Shadow Clan camp. The old and sick of Shadow Clan are slowly starving, meowed Ashfur. The casualties among our kits are more than we can cope with. But if Shadow Clan is a mess, burst out Darkstripe, how come you have shown so much strength lately? And why is Broken Star still your leader? Broken Star is surrounded by a small group of elite warriors, answered Ashfur. They are the ones to fear, because they would die for him without question. The other warriors obey his orders only because they are frightened. They will fight by his side as long as they think Broken Star is going to win. If they thought he would lose, they would fight against him, not for him. Darkstripe finished the elder's words in disgust. What sort of loyalty is that? The hackles of the Shadow Clan cats began to rise. Our clan was not always like this, Yellowfang interrupted. When Ragged Star led Shadow Clan, we were feared for our strength. But in those days, our strength came from the warrior code and clan loyalty, not from fear and bloodlust. The old medicine cat sighed. If only Ragged Star had lived longer. How did Ragged Star die? Asked Whitestorm curiously. There were so many rumors at the gatherings, but no one seemed to know for sure. Yellowfang's eyes clouded with sorrow. He was ambushed by a warrior patrol from another clan. Whitestorm nodded thoughtfully. Yes, that is what most cats seem to think. These are bad times indeed, when leaders are picked off in the dark instead of open and honorable battle. Firepaw frowned, his mind racing over different battle plans. Is there any way of taking the kits without alerting the whole clan? He asked. Dawncloud answered him. They are very closely guarded. Broken Star will be expecting ThunderClan to try to take them. You won't be able to steal them in secret. Open attack is your only hope. Then we must concentrate our attack on Broken Star and his inner guard, meowed Whitestorm. Yellowfang had a suggestion. The Shadow Clan warriors should lead me into the Shadow Clan camp. They could say that they had captured me. We have to make sure Broken Star and his warriors are out of their dens. News of my capture will bring them into the clearing. Once they're all out in the open, I'll give the signal for you to attack. Whitestorm was silent for a moment, then he nodded, his face grave as he committed his warriors to the attack. Very well, Yellowfang, he meowed. Please, lead the way to Shadow Clan camp. Chapter 24. Yellowfang turned and pushed her way into the bracken. Whitestorm and the others followed her. Firepaw was tingling with excitement. He didn't feel the damp chill in the air, and his weariness was long forgotten. Yellowfang guided them to a small hollow surrounded by thick undergrowth and pointed out the entrance to the Shadow Clan camp. The tangled mass of brambles looked very different from the neat gorse tunnel that led into the ThunderClan camp. The camp boundary was full of holes and gaps, and the stench of rotting meat wafted toward them. You eat crow food? Whispered Greypaw, curling his lip. Our warriors are used for attacking, not hunting, replied Ashfur. We eat whatever we can find. ThunderClan, hide in that clump of bracken over there, hissed Yellowfang. It's full of toadstools that will disguise your scent. Wait here till you hear me call. She stepped back to let the other Shadow Clan cats lead the way, tucking herself into the center of their group as though she was their prisoner. They headed silently into the camp. The ThunderClan cats settled themselves amongst the toadstools, tense and alert. Firepaw could feel his coat prickling. He looked at Greypaw beside him. The thick fur on the back of his friend's neck was standing on end, and Firepaw could hear him panting with suppressed excitement. Suddenly, yowling erupted from the Shadow Clan camp. Without hesitating, the ThunderClan cats sprang from their hiding places and raced through the entrance. Yellowfang, Ashfur, Dawncloud, and Nightpelt were in a well-trodden, muddy clearing, wrestling with 6 vicious-looking warriors. Firepaw recognized Broken Star and his deputy, Blackfoot, among them. The warriors looked hungry and battle-scarred, but Firepaw could see the hard muscles pounding beneath their patchy fur. Around the edge of the clearing, groups of scrawny cats stared uncertainly at the mayhem. Their skinny bodies seemed to recoil at the violence, while their dull eyes looked on, shocked and confused. Out of the corner of his eye, Firepaw saw Running Nose back away and hide beneath a bush. At Whitestorm's nodded signal, the ThunderClan cats leapt into the battle. Firepaw grasped a silver tabby with his claws, but was shaken loose. He tumbled over, and the Shadow Clan warrior turned on him and gripped him with claws as sharp as blackthorns. Firepaw managed to twist and sink his teeth deep into the cat's flesh. The warrior's yowl told him he had found a tender spot, and he bit harder. The warrior screeched again, ripping himself free, and ran off into the bushes. Firepaw stood up. A young Shadow Clan apprentice leapt at him from the edge of the camp, its soft kitten fur fluffed up with fear. Firepaw sheathed his claws and batted him away easily. This is not your battle, he hissed. Whitestorm already had Blackfoot pinned to the ground. He gave him a vicious bite, and the injured deputy raced away toward the camp entrance and out into the safety of the forest. Firepaw! Firepaw heard Dawncloud screech his name. Watch out! Clawface is... He didn't hear the rest. A heavily built brown cat crashed into him, Clawface. Firepaw dug his claws into the ground and whirled around to fight, the warrior that killed Spotted Leaf. Rage surged through him and he flung himself onto the brown tom. Firepaw pushed the warrior to the ground and pressed his head into the dirt. Blinded by fury, he prepared to sink his teeth into Clawface's neck. But before he could deal his death blow, Whitestorm knocked him aside and grasped the ShadowClan warrior. ThunderClan warriors do not kill unless they have to, he growled into Firepaw's ear. We just need to let them know not to show their faces here again. He gave Clawface a fierce bite that sent him screaming out of the camp. Still raging, Firepaw looked around wildly. Broken Star's warriors had gone. An angry screech sounded from behind Greypaw. Greypaw leapt out of the way, and Firepaw saw Yellowfang gripping Broken Star with muddy, blood-stained paws. His body bled from several wounds, his ears were flattened against his head, and his whiskers were drawn back as he crouched, flattened beneath Yellowfang's powerful grasp. I never thought you'd be harder to kill than my father, he snarled up at her. Yellowfang recoiled as if she had been stung by a bee. Her face twisted suddenly by shock and grief. She loosened her grip on Broken Star, and instantly he threw her aside with a twist of his powerful body. You killed Ragged Star? Yellowfang wailed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Broken Star eyed her coldly. You found his body. Didn't you recognize my fur between his claws? Yellowfang stared in horror as he continued. He was a soft and foolish leader. He deserved to die. No, hissed Yellowfang, her head dropping. Then she gave herself a shake. She looked up at Broken Star, arching her back. And Bright Flower's kits? Did they deserve to die too? She rasped. Broken Star growled and hurled himself at Yellowfang, forcing her onto her belly. Yellowfang didn't even attempt to struggle against his thorn-sharp claws. Firepaw saw this with alarm, and that in her eyes that were glazed with sadness. Those kits were weak, Broken Star hissed, bending his face toward Yellowfang's ear. They would have been no use to ShadowClan. If I hadn't killed them, some other warrior would have. A wail of grief went up from a black and white ShadowClan queen. Broken Star ignored her. I should have killed you when I had the chance, he spat at Yellowfang. It seems I must have some of my father's softness. I was a fool to let you leave ShadowClan alive. He lunged, teeth bared, ready to sink them into her neck. Firepaw was quicker. He jumped onto Broken Star's back before he could clamp his jaws shut. Firepaw dug his claws into the matted tabby fur and pulled him off the exhausted queen, flinging him to the edge of the clearing. Broken Star twisted around in midair to land on his feet and looked into Firepaw's eyes, spitting viciously. Don't waste your time, apprentice. I've shared dreams with ShadowClan. You will have to kill me 9 times over before I join them. Do you really think you're strong enough for that? His eyes glowed back with confidence and defiance. Firepaw stared back at him. His belly tightened. Broken Star was a clan leader. How on earth could he expect to defeat him? But the watching ShadowClan cats had begun to pad slowly toward their defeated leader, snarling and hissing with hatred. They were battered and half-starved, but Broken Star was outnumbered, and he seemed to realize this with a nervous flick of his tail. He crouched and backed away through the bushes. His eyes glittered menacingly from the shadows, his gaze finding Firepaw through the crowd. This isn't over, apprentice, he hissed before he turned and vanished into the forest after his broken warriors. Firepaw looked to Whitestorm. Should we go after them? He meowed. The warrior shook his head. I think they got the message. Nightpelt, the ShadowClan warrior, nodded in agreement. Leave them. If they dare to show their faces here again, ShadowClan will be strong enough by then to tackle them alone. The rest of ShadowClan was huddled together in the ruins of their camp, as if numbed by the realization that their leader had gone. It will take time to rebuild this clan, Firepaw thought. The kits! Firepaw heard Greypaw's meow from a far corner of the clearing. He rushed over to his friend, Mousefur and Whitestorm bounding at his heels. As they approached, they could hear the pitiful mewling of kits coming from beneath a pile of leaves and twigs. Quickly, Greypaw and Mousefur dug down through the foliage until they had uncovered the missing ThunderClan kits at the bottom of a small pit. "Are they okay?" demanded Whitestorm, his tail twitching with anxiety. "They're fine," replied Greypaw. "Most have only a few scratches, but that little tabby has a pretty nasty wound on his ear. Can you take a look, Yellowfang?" The old she-cat was licking her own wounds, but at Greypaw's call she raced to the side of the pit, where Greypaw had carefully deposited the tabby kit. Firepaw helped Greypaw to lift out the rest of the kits. The last one was gray, like the embers of an old fire. She mewed and squirmed as Firepaw placed her on the ground. Mousefur gathered all the kits to her and comforted them with licks and caresses. Yellowfang looked closely at the torn ear. "We need to stop this bleeding," she meowed. Running Nose stepped out of the shadows. His forepaw was coated in a layer of cobwebs, which he silently passed to Yellowfang. She nodded her thanks and began to treat the kit's wound. Nightpelt approached the group of ThunderClan cats. "You helped ShadowClan rid itself of a brutal and dangerous leader, and we are grateful. But it is time you left our camp and returned to your own. I promise your hunting grounds will be free of ShadowClan warriors as long as we can find enough food in our own territory." Whitestorm nodded. "Hunt in peace for one moon, Nightpelt. ThunderClan knows you need time to rebuild your clan." He turned to Yellowfang. "And you, Yellowfang," he asked, "do you wish to return with us or stay here with your old comrades?" Yellowfang looked up at him. "I will make my journey back with you." She glanced at a deep gash on Whitestorm's hind leg. "You will need a medicine cap for yourself as well as your kits." "Thank you," purred Whitestorm. He signaled to the ThunderClan cats with a sweep of his tail and led them out of the clearing. Mousefur and Willowpelt helped the kits, who stumbled along, exhausted and bewildered. Yellowfang walked close to the wounded tabby kit, lifting him by the scruff of his neck every time he slipped. Firepaw and Greypaw followed them through the brambles, past the camp scent line, and out into the forest. The moon was still rising in the quiet sky as the ThunderClan party began the long trudge home, while around them showers of brown leaves fluttered to the forest floor. Chapter 25. Buoyed up with relief at being home again, Firepaw and Greypaw sprinted ahead of the patrol into the ThunderClan camp. Frostfur was lying in the middle of the clearing, her head resting sadly on her paws. As the two apprentices bounded in, she lifted her nose and sniffed the air. "My kits!" she cried. She leapt up and raced past Firepaw and Greypaw to meet the rest of the party as they emerged from the tunnel. The kits rushed over to Frostfur and nuzzled into her side. She curled her soft body around them and licked them each in turn, purring loudly. Yellowfang hung back at the camp entrance and looked on silently. Bluestar strode up to the returning patrol. She glanced fondly at Frostfur and her kits and then turned her eyes to Whitestorm. "Are they all right?" she asked. "They're fine," meowed Whitestorm. "Well done, Whitestorm. ThunderClan honors you." Whitestorm bent his head to accept her praise and added, "But it was thanks to these apprentices that we found them." Firepaw lifted his head and tail proudly, about to speak, but Tigerclaw's accusing snarl sounded from across the clearing. "Why did you bring back that traitor?" The dark warrior stalked up to the patrol and stood beside his leader. "She's no traitor," Firepaw insisted. He looked around the camp. The rest of the cats had quickly gathered in the clearing to see the kits and congratulate the hunting party. Some of them had spotted Yellowfang and were eyeing her with looks of pure hatred. "She killed Spotted Leaf," spat Longtail. "Look between Spotted Leaf's claws," Greypaw suggested. "You will find the brown fur of Clawface, not Yellowfang's gray fur." Bluestar nodded at Mousefur, who darted away from the crowd toward the spot where Spotted Leaf's body lay, waiting for its dawn burial. The clan waited in tense silence till she returned. "Greypaw's right," Mousefur panted, rushing back to the clearing. "Spotted Leaf was not attacked by a gray cat." A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. "But that doesn't mean she didn't help to take the kits," hissed Tigerclaw. "Without Yellowfang, we never would have recovered the kits," Firepaw spat, his exhaustion making him impatient. "She knew that a ShadowClan warrior had taken them. She was hunting for them when I found her. She risked her life returning to ShadowClan It was Yellowfang who thought up the battle plan that got us into the Shadow Clan camp and gave us a chance to defeat Broken Star. The cats listened to Firepaw's word, astonished. He's right, Whitestorm meowed. Yellowfang is a friend. I'm glad to hear it, murmured Bluestar, catching Firepaw's eye. Frostfur's anxious meow sounded from the crowd. Is Broken Star dead? She asked. No, he escaped, Whitestorm told her, but he will never lead Shadow Clan again. Frostfur sighed in relief and returned to nuzzling her kits. Whitestorm looked at Bluestar. I promised Shadow Clan we would leave them in peace until next full moon, he explained. Broken Star's leadership has left their clan in chaos. Bluestar nodded. That was a wise and generous offer, she meowed approvingly. The ThunderClan leader walked past Whitestorm and the rest of the patrol and approached Yellowfang. Yellowfang lowered her eyes as Bluestar touched the gray cat's rough coat with her nose. Yellowfang, I wish you to replace Spotted Leaf as medicine cat to ThunderClan, Bluestar meowed. I'm sure you'll find all her supplies as she left them. The other cats began to murmur to each other, tails flicking with excitement. Yellowfang looked around at them anxiously and said nothing. Frostfur glanced at the other queens before she met Yellowfang's gaze and slowly nodded her approval. Yellowfang bent her head respectfully to the white cat before addressing her new leader. Thank you, Bluestar. Shadow Clan is not the clan I once knew. ThunderClan is my clan now. Firepaw felt a surge of satisfaction that the old she-cat had come to love, would be his clan's medicine cat from now on. Then his tail dropped as he realized that he would never again find Spotted Leaf in her clearing, the sunlight gleaming off her soft fur, her amber eyes shining in welcome. Where's Ravenpaw? Meowed Bluestar suddenly, jolting Firepaw out of his bittersweet remembrance. Yes, Tigerclaw chimed in. Where is my apprentice? Strange that he should disappear along with Broken Star. He looked meaningfully around the clan. If you think he might have been helping Broken Star, Firepaw meowed boldly, then you are wrong. Tigerclaw stiffened, a menacing gleam in his yellow eyes. Ravenpaw is dead, Firepaw went on, dropping his head as if weighed down with grief. We found his body in Shadow Clan territory. From the scents around him, he must have been slain by a Shadow Clan patrol. He looked at Bluestar. I will tell you everything later, he promised. Yellowfang shot Firepaw a questioning look. Firepaw returned her gaze with a silent plea for her to hold her tongue. She twitched her ears briefly in understanding and looked away. I never said that Ravenpaw was a traitor, hissed Tigerclaw. He paused and allowed an expression of sorrow to cloud his eyes before he turned to address the rest of the clan. Ravenpaw might have made a fine warrior. His death has come too soon, and his loss will be felt by many of us for a long time. Empty words, thought Firepaw bitterly. What would Tigerclaw say if he knew that Ravenpaw was safe, far beyond the forest, catching rats with barley? Bluestar broke the silence. We will miss Ravenpaw, but we shall mourn him tomorrow. First, there is another ritual that must be performed. One, I know that Ravenpaw would have taken pleasure in. She turned to Firepaw and Greypaw. You have shown great courage tonight. Did they fight well, Whitestorm? She asked. Like warriors, Whitestorm replied solemnly. Bluestar met his yellow-eyed gaze and gave a slight nod. Then she lifted her chin and fixed her eyes on Silverpelt's swath of stars. Her voice rang out, clear and measured, in the hushed woods. I, Bluestar, leader of ThunderClan, call upon my warrior ancestors to look down on these two apprentices. They have trained hard to understand the ways of your noble code, and I commend them to you as warriors in their turn. She looked down at Firepaw and Greypaw, narrowing her eyes. Firepaw, Greypaw, do you promise to uphold the warrior code and to protect and defend this clan, even at the cost of your lives? Firepaw felt something stir within him, a fire that burned in his belly and rang in his ears. He suddenly felt that everything he had done for the clan so far, all the prey he had stalked, all the enemy warriors he had fought, had been for the sake of this single moment. I do, he replied civilly. I do, echoed Greypaw, his fur bristling with excitement. Then, by the powers of StarClan, I give you your warrior names. Greypaw, from this moment, you will be known as Greystripe. StarClan honors your bravery and your strength, and we welcome you as a full warrior of ThunderClan. Bluestar stepped forward and rested her muzzle on top of Greystripe's bowed head. He bent lower to give her shoulder a respectful lick, then straightened up and walked over to join the other warriors. Bluestar stood and studied Firepaw for a long moment before speaking. Firepaw, from this moment on, you will be known as Fireheart. StarClan honors your bravery and your strength, and we welcome you as a full warrior of ThunderClan. She touched her muzzle to his head and murmured, Fireheart, I am proud to have you as my warrior. Serve your clan well, young one. Fireheart's muscles were trembling so much that he could hardly stoop to lick Bluestar's shoulder. He purred hoarsely to show his thanks, then slipped away to stand beside Greystripe. Meows of tribute sounded from the crowd, and the voices of the clan rose in the still night air to chant the new warrior names. Fireheart, Greystripe, Fireheart, Greystripe. Fireheart looked around the clan, seeing faces that had grown so familiar over the last few moons. He listened to them as they called his new name and felt overwhelmed by the kindness and respect he saw shining in their eyes. It is almost moon-high, meowed Bluestar. In the tradition of our ancestors, Fireheart and Greystripe must sit in silent vigil until dawn and guard the camp alone while we sleep. Fireheart and Greystripe nodded solemnly. As the rest of the clan began to melt away back to their dens, Tigerclaw pushed past Fireheart. The ThunderClan deputy slowed as he passed and hissed quietly into his ear. Don't think you can outwit me, kitty pet. Be careful what you tell Bluestar. A cold shiver ran down Fireheart's spine. Bluestar had to know about Tigerclaw's treachery. As Tigerclaw headed back to the warrior's den, Fireheart left Greystripe sitting alone in the clearing and bounded after Bluestar. He caught up with her outside her den. Bluestar, I know I'm breaking the vow of silence, but I must speak with you before I begin my vigil. Bluestar looked at Fireheart and shook her head. This is an important ritual, Fireheart. You can speak to me in the morning. Fireheart dipped his head in acceptance. Tigerclaw was not a problem that could be solved overnight anyway. He returned to Greystripe's side in the middle of the clearing. The two friends exchanged glances, but said nothing. Fireheart looked at the moon above his head. His orange coat glowed silver in the cold light. Around him, the bushes and trees were draped in mist that brushed damply against his fur. Fireheart closed his eyes and recalled the dreams of his kittenhood. The cool forest scents in his nostrils were real now, and the life of a warrior stretched ahead of him. He felt unrestrained joy flood up from his paws and surge through his body. Then he opened his eyes with a jolt. Another pair of eyes was shining back at him from the warrior's den. Tigerclaw. Fireheart stared back without blinking. He was a warrior now. He had made an enemy of the clan's deputy, but Tigerclaw had made an enemy of him. Fireheart was not the same naive young cat who had joined the clan all those moons ago. He was bigger, stronger, faster, and wiser. If he was destined to oppose Tigerclaw, then so be it. Fireheart was ready for the challenge. And that's where we will stop. I hope everyone enjoyed Erin Hunter's Into the Wild. We will pick up with a new book tomorrow night. For now, I hope everybody is having a good evening. I hope everybody has a good night. Until next time, take care.